Welcome back, Guardians. It's good to see so many of you participating in these summer games. Of course, we scholars should remain sidelines, continue with our reports, our theories. But I see some of my brethren have rallied around certain classes in an attempt to further their prestige and influence amongst you. Now, if I were to say anything at all, remember why these games exist. They are done in an attempt to draw out the very best in each of you, and we fail to rise together if only one of us succeeds. But the report today is focused on a different topic, one part lesson, one part waning and warning, and fixates on a particular warlord, Citan, the bane of old Russia and the enemy of the lightless. If you have time, Guardians, in between your triumphs against one another, I ask that you gather round and listen for a while. To start, we should explain the conflict between the Iron Lords and the Warlords, at least briefly, as our last report on Shaxx and his challenges provide enough contextual backstory to bring you up to speed. The Dark Age was a time of unbridled conflict. Humanity huddled itself around the Risen, or Lightbearers, and these new immortal champions were a far cry from the Guardians we have today. They were motivated by their own ambitions, as if they were reincarnated spirits from historic kings and queens of old, still unprepared to handle the weight of their newfound responsibility as Lightbearers. We should note, however, that humanity has always been somewhat juvenile in the first-time experiences, and without the societal norms to provide a baseline for morality, many Lightbearers found themselves making the rules of life and death as they went along. The ghosts that partnered with them seemed to provide little, if any, advice on how to act or react, only providing a source of limitless power, but no rules or regulations on how to act. These warlords, like Shaxx, like Citan, and even Fellwinter, operated in their own ways, carving mountains, rivers, and hills into their own fiefdoms, each attempting to suffocate the other. Some warlords, especially Citan, were particularly brutal in their mechanisms, cutting off supply lines, forcing the lightless or mortal humans to follow their commands, operating closer to absolute dictators as opposed to warlords. Perhaps in the future, we should delve deeper into the Dark Age and ask these pressing questions. Why did the ghosts come to humans and provide no guidance? Why would humanity react in such a way in the post-collapse world? Are we so ignorant in our own selfish thinking as to not use this power to help those without options? Maybe this time period was a test of the Traveler, seeking to have us come forward with one philosophy, one way of life, either dictatorship or republic, to exploit the weak or facilitate their growth. Regardless, Citan, the ruler of the 32nd sector of old Russia during our Dark Age, was perhaps one of the most ruthless warlords we have records of. Citan was a titan of absolute barbarism, embodying all the strength and resolve of our titans today, but truly lacking any empathy or reasoning we see in many of our present-day brethren. His ramparts have been recently recovered by a few titans looking to purify his image, or perhaps to strike fear into their enemies, using the iconography of a brutal warlord of our past. It should be warned that these gauntlets house a taint that cannot easily be washed away or even redeemed, and while the wielders should remain uncorruptible from pure touch, the very thought of how many lightless these gauntlets help remove from their tether of this world should inject a certain fear. Risen, like Citan, were capable of a great many things, but killing lightless humans? Those we have sworn to protect, just to make a statement of strength and dominance? Truly, this warrior lacked all sensibility and rationale. He was the lowest of scum. He preyed on the misfortune of the unchosen. The depravity of his actions still guilt many of the Guardian ancestors today. And it should. What he did to the people in his territory during the freezing harshness of old Russia's winters is unforgivable. Now imagine, for a moment, You're one of the lightless. Your world was made scattered by the collapse, the fallout of the apocalypse made human through your constant struggle for survival. You hear, either amongst your wandering camp of vagabonds, that the light has returned to a select few. The risen, they whisper. They come with the traveler's messengers to provide protection and immortality. They provide a new hope for you, for your people, forced to seek new homes in the harshness of this reality with a traveler now in slumber. They whisper. A few of these arisen. You hear the story, sure. Some can be a bit barbaric, care little for those they oversee in their territories. But you look at your options. You see death and decay all around you. Your people cannot survive another winter within the territory of what was once called Russia. So you seek out to hope. It calls to you. You, the moth, and the risen, the flame. One such risen, Citan, has a hearth in the territory of Russia. It's protected by him in an absolute way. But you think to yourself, sure, you're willing to trade a few freedoms to ensure your survivability. Your instincts drive you. You must live. You must sacrifice to do so. The old world is dead. There are no governments, no handouts, no laws, so you do what you must. You seek out this Citan in a particular brutal winter, the cold at your back asking for you to give in, forget the life of the living and join the many in death. You see his castle, a formidable beacon of the establishment in a wasteland of destruction. But the doors to his hearth are closed. They don't open for weakness, they only open for strength. You have no other options, do you? You must pound upon the doors until your palms turn red, your fingertips are driven bare. You enter, the doors finally brought down by your tenacity, only to be met by Citan, a warrior of infamy? Perhaps renown? You question to yourself. He gives you a challenge. My home is open to any with the will to earn it. You only need to get past me. Earn it, you think. Have you not given enough to famine, to death, to earn this respite in the unforgivable cold that creeps at your back? One of you, a familiar face in your camp of travelers, steps up to the challenge, seeking to lead you and the rest of these lost souls into a new age of protection under these light bearers. But dread occupies you, freezes you quicker than the blizzard raging at your back. The one who ushered forward, accepting Citan's challenge, vanishes in ash in quick bursts of arc light. He, this warlord, this light bearer, just removed the connective tissue of a life to a soul in all but an instant. You realize then and there, the blizzard was preferable to this titan, this Citan, a man lacking empathy, lacking remorse. You hope for a quick end. This story has its truth. Citan did massacre many of those in his territory, simply as a show of force, to occupy those around him with fear, with dread. He did not need to do this, Guardian. He was already a king among peasants with his ability to wield the light. His castle was brimming with reserves to feed hundreds, if not thousands, of lightless. Why? Why, you might ask, would such evil be allowed to exist? Had the traveler chosen wrong? Had the traveler simply picked at random who would be brought back to usher in a new golden age, placing its bet on goodness and hope over the baseness of humanity? The Iron Lords were the resolution to the decadence of these warlords, especially those like Citan, who valued their own ambition, their own pragmatism, over the absolute truth of hope, of the strong protecting those without. Perhaps, just perhaps, Fellwinter was correct to enforce the Iron Decree absolutely. There was not a world or universe worth attempting to reason with those like Citan, as they deserved what they wrought amongst the lightness, a quick, absolute, and utterly final death. As the Iron Lords began to tighten their grip on the last remaining warlords of the Dark Age, Fellwinter gave Citan a choice. perhaps knowing full well that the option to decide was an illusion, as a man like Citan would never give up his authority to a group of risen attempting to protect those that did not deserve protection. Fellwinter, during their moments of parley, attempted reason and then provided violence, offering Citan a final lesson in the waning hours of the Dark Age. The Iron Lords brought with them a real hope, something tangible, something the lightless could seek out and surround themselves in, protected by the warm fires of the light made true. Fellwinter gave Citan a quick death, but before his ghost could resurrect him again to continue his era of tyranny, 2 blasts of his shotgun rung, one for Citan, one for his ghost, forever removing the taint of the warlord who cared little for those who needed him, who needed a fire to circle around as the cold harshness of the Dark Age began to engulf the last vestiges of humanity. Fellwinter provides us a lesson, Guardian. You earned your keepsake by birth, but you must strive every day, every hour, every minute, and every second to live up to that name of Guardian. Your battles, your victories, the mantles of honor and valor bestowed upon you are only reserved for those who continually seek to protect humanity and all that is good in this world. If you choose not to walk this path, if you choose to build a fiefdom of dread and slavery to fear, a Fellwinter, or those like him, will eventually come. It may not be immediate, but one day you will be removed so completely from this world, and your name will be dragged through the mud of disgust for an eternity. Stay safe, Guardians, and may the lessons of Citan sit well within you.